with a 3-up save. He can fly, and he moves 12 inches, which move characteristic goes down as he gets injured. And he has a billion things that he does offensively. He has an 8-inch attack. It's a 1 attack that hits on 2, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does d6 damage. So his range can really hurt. He has a Smasha, a Cunnin, a Big Teeth Mighty Fist, and a Big Teeth Bladed Tail for attacks, which all of those together ends up being 18 more attacks that pretty much all hit on 2s and all wound on 3s, except for the Bladed Tail, which is hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s. So he just whatever he touches, he's going to hurt. So Smasha specifically has an ability where wound rolls of 6 or more inflict D3 mortal wounds if he's fighting a hero. And Cunning has wound rolls of 4 or more inflict D3 mortal wounds if the target is a wizard.
That shit's bananas.
He's also got an ability called Strength from Victory, and basically the more he fights, the stronger he gets. So if he makes an attack with Smasher or Cunning that slays an enemy hero, then he can add 1 to his wound characteristics and to his attack characteristics of that weapon that inflicted the killing wound.
Sounds awesome. What about the other factions are there any others that are super hordy or super big guy-y?
More or less, it would be like the Grots. Ogres don't really have any horde units. They're all kind of behemoth-y. So it really kind of just falls on Grots. And to be totally honest, I don't know a whole lot about Grots.
What about Skaven?
Yeah, so when you think horde, what does everybody think? They think Skaven, right? So Skaven belong to the Chaos faction, and there's a few different Skaven to choose from. One particular Skaven faction I'm interested in is the Clan Pestilence, only because I have a lot of Nurgle stuff, and they would play well together. But I do want to, for the sake of this podcast, I want to call out the Storm Vermin as a horde. You know, you get a bunch of these guys together. They're saving on 5, which isn't horrible for a horde. 2 attacks each model. So, you know, if you got your guy surrounded, that's a lot of attacks. Hitting on 4, wounding on 3. What makes them potentially dangerous is you can add 1 to the hit rolls if it targets a unit that has fewer models than its own unit. So obviously the Horde versus the Behemoth, that falls into that category. And then if you have the Standard Bearer in the unit, which why wouldn't you can actually retreat and then still charge in the same turn. So yeah, you get a few of these guys on the table, you're going to be a worthy opponent for your enemy. Not to mention the horde discount. I know I've said that a couple times now, but that's such a key thing.
Sounds like it'd be a ton of fun.
And I don't play Skaven, but I'm sure, I haven't played Skaven yet, but I'm sure for those who do, I'm sure there's all kinds of buffs and synergies that I've not even addressed. So something else to consider with hordes. Usually, as I called out with the Bloodletters, there's ways to buff those hordes to make them even more powerful.
That's one of my favorite thing about the games right now is that both in 40K and Age of Sigmar, nothing is what it is on the surface. There are always going to be synergies and tactics involved and ways to make nearly anything worth putting on the board.
Yep, and that's exactly right.
All right, so to wrap it up, basically both Hordes and Behemoths have a lot of potential in this game. Do you guys have anything final to say?
I really feel like that what it comes down to is playstyle, and it also comes down to, obviously it's a dice-based game, so you're going to get hosed some days, and some days you're going to be king of the world. But I think pick the models that go with the scenario or go with what you're trying to do. If you need a scenario where you need a lot of speed, maybe you're more interested in a Behemoth because they move a little bit faster. Maybe you need those extra guys, though, for staying power, for tar pitting something. I think that's the beauty of these kinds of both 40K and Age of Sigmar. There is no jack-of-all-trades unit that does everything amazingly. There's no Behemoth that can do anything, and it's all just based on what's your strategy, what's your style. Pick and play as you choose.
Yeah, and just to build off of what Nick said, for me personally, it's all about list building to the scenario, right? So there might be a scenario where I've got 2 Bloodthirsters on the table, and then the next week I've got 60 Chaos Warriors. So really it's just being smart about who your opponent is, having an idea of what you think they're going to bring to the table, and then also just really being mindful of the scenario.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being on, guys. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from each of you again here soon. Thanks to everyone out there in podcast land. Without you, this project wouldn't exist. You can contact us on Facebook at Stratagem Podcast. That's the @ symbol, STRATAGYMPODCAST, or email stratagympodcast@gmail.com. Please drop us a line if you have a list that you'd like us to take a look at, or if you have any special requests or suggestions for an upcoming episode. Next week, we're going to get filthy with the brand spanking new Death Card Codex for Warhammer 40k. Thank you again to all our listeners. This has been Stratagym.